Hello friends, welcome back to my channel. Hope you guys are studying very hard. I do understand that this time is very challenging, but this too shall pass. Don't worry. Give your best shot and don't give up. Don't even think about it. Okay? So, we have already completed revision come questionnaire of 3 chapters. Link is in the description so you can check those videos if needed. Today we'll do the 4th chapter, that is registration. First we'll quickly revise this chapter and then we'll move towards the questionnaire. Let's revise. First point is nature of registration. The registration in GST is PAN based and state specific. It's PAN based means PAN number is mandatory to obtain the registration. Okay, and it is state specific. There is no centralized registration in this case. You have to take separate registration for each state. So it's state specific. Next point is one registration per state or union territory. Okay. However, a business entity having separate places of business in a state may obtain separate registration for each of its places of business. If business entity have separate place of business in a state, then it can obtain same registration or separate registration. If it obtains the separate registration for each of its place of business, then that entity is supposed to satisfy the prescribed conditions. Next is GST identification number called GSTIN, a 15-digit number, and a certificate of registration incorporating therein. This GSTIN is made available to the applicant on the GSTIN common portal. So it's a 15-digit number, GSTIN number, and it is made available to the applicant on the portal. Next is registration under GST is not tax specific, that is single registration for all taxes, that is CGST, SGST or UTGST, IGST and cesses. Means in all acts like as per CGST Act, as per SGST Act, you don't have to take separate registration. If you take one registration, that registration is valid for all the taxes. Means if you have to pay CGST or SGST or UTGST, IGST, you don't have to take separate registration as per SGST, as per CGST, as per IGST. It is not tax specific, it is state specific. So, single registration for all taxes. Now, persons liable to registration. Second point is persons liable to registration. Who are the persons liable to take the registration? First one is those who exceed threshold limit. Threshold limit elaborated separately in the diagram below. These are the threshold limit. First we'll see this one. What is given here? In case of transfer of business on account of succession, etc., then transferee is liable to be registered from the date of succession of business. It is clear. When the business is transferred from transferor to transferee, then transferee is liable to take the registration and he is liable to take the registration from the date of succession of business. Next case is given. In case of amalgamation, demerger by an order of High Court, etc., in that case transferee means amalgamated company, they are saying, a resultant company, liable to be registered from the date on which registrar of companies means ROC issues incorporation certificate giving effect to the order of High Court. In this case, transferee is not liable to get registered from the date of amalgamation. Transferee is liable to get registered from the date ROC issues incorporation certificate. Okay. Now they have given the definition, means what are the components that are covered in aggregate turnover. Aggregate turnover will be computed on all India basis for same PAN. It consists of taxable supplies plus exempt supplies plus export plus interstate supplies. This you all know. Now applicable threshold limit. Now what are the threshold limits? See, state with threshold limit of rupees 10 lakh for both goods and services. If any state provides, supplies both goods and services, then the threshold, these states, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, if the states provides, supplies both goods and services, then the threshold limit for these states is 10 lakhs. Means if it supplies more than 10 lakhs, then they are supposed to take the registration, else not. MMNT, you can see it as MNMT or MMNT. just to memorize. Okay, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura. For this 4 states, threshold limit is 10 lakhs. Next one is Arunachal Pradesh, Meghalaya, Sikkim, Uttarakhand, Puducherry, Telangana. 4 states are there in case of 10 lakhs, and in case of 20 lakhs, 6 states are there. So you can do this as MASPUT, MASPUT, mass put, or you can make some other. Okay, MASPUT, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim. Put is Puducherry, Uttarakhand, and Telangana. In this case, state with threshold limit of 20 lakhs for both goods and services. Now we have already completed 10 states. Now next remaining states, and in those 10 states, Jammu Kashmir, Assam, Himachal Pradesh is not included. So for Jammu Kashmir, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, and all other states, threshold limit is 20 lakhs for services and 40 lakhs for goods exclusive. Means if these states means this Jammu Kashmir, Assam, Himachal Pradesh, you can take this as Hajj, HAJ, Himachal Pradesh, Assam, Jammu and Kashmir. So and all other states. So if these states supplies exclusive supply of goods, if the state supplies only goods, then in that case registration limit is 40 lakhs. If it supplies both goods and services, or it supplies only services, then threshold limit is 20 lakhs. I guess it's clear. Now third point is compulsory registration in certain cases. You can see those limits again if you want. I'm repeating this again. This 4 states, Manipur, Mizoram, Nagaland, Tripura, 10 lakhs. Rest 6 states, this mass put, Meghalaya, Assam, Meghalaya, Arunachal Pradesh, Sikkim, Puducherry, Uttarakhand, Telangana. For in this case, 6 states, 20 lakhs, and rest is Hajj and all other states, 40 lakhs for goods, and if both goods services and suppose if it provides supplies only services, then 20 lakhs. So this completes the threshold limit. Now third point is compulsory registration in certain cases. Now see this one, compulsory registration. Person making any interstate taxable supply. If any person makes interstate, not intrastate, interstate taxable supply, then that person is liable to take the registration. Means it's compulsory for that person to take the registration. Okay. Now there is one exemption in this. Hope you guys remember this. So any person who is making interstate taxable supply, then that person is required to take the registration, but there is exemption for interstate taxable supply of services. If any person making interstate taxable supply of services, then if the aggregate turnover doesn't exceed 20 lakhs or 10 lakhs in case of special category states, that is Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur, Nagaland, then that person is not required to take the registration. Okay, so exemption is provided to supplier of services. Okay. Now next point is those e-commerce operators who are notified as liable for tax payment under section 9 subsection 5. Now e-commerce operators who are liable to pay tax under section 9(5), as we have studied in section 9(5), 3 e-commerce operators. Do you guys remember? You guys remember? Transportation of passengers, providing accommodation in hotels, and what more was there? Services by way of housekeeping. So they all are compulsorily required to take the registration. Next one is a person who supplies on behalf of some other taxable person, that is an agent of some principal. If principal has taken the registration, agent is compulsorily required to take the registration even his turnover is below the threshold limit, then also. Next is casual taxable person who does not have a fixed place of business in the state or union territory from where he wants to make the taxable supply. Wants to make supply. Okay. Casual taxable person is compulsorily required to take the registration. Then NRTP, non-resident taxable person who do not have a fixed place of business in India. Then suppliers other than notified under section 9(5) who supply through an e-commerce operator. Now in this point they are not talking about e-commerce operator, they are talking about the suppliers who supply through an e-commerce operator other than notified under section 9(5) who supply through an e-commerce operator. Those suppliers are supposed to take the registration, compulsory registration. Then ISD, input service distributor, whether or not separately registered under this act, whether they have to take the separate registration under this act, but they have to take compulsory registration as ISD for distribution of ITC. A person receiving supplies on which tax is payable by the recipient on reverse charge basis. A person receiving supplies on which tax is payable by the recipient on reverse charge basis. If any recipient is liable to pay the tax on RCM, then that recipient is liable to take the registration. Then person who are required to deduct tax under section 51 TDS. Then every e-commerce operator is required to collect tax at source. Then person or classes of person notified by central or state government. So these all are the persons who are supposed to take the compulsory registration. Okay. Now come to fourth point, that is person not liable for registration. These are the persons, they are not liable for the registration. It's given here. Person engaged exclusively in supplying goods, services, both not liable to tax, wholly exempt from tax. Means if any person is engaged in supplying those goods and services which are not liable to tax, which are exempted, which are exempted from tax or which are not non-taxable goods, then those persons are not required to take the registration. Then the next point is agricultural is limited to supply of produce out of cultivation of land. If its supply is limited to supply of produce, then out of cultivation of land, then that agriculture is not required to take the registration. Next one is person making only reverse charge supplies. Then also that person is not required to take the registration. Means if any person is making reverse charge supplies, then obviously recipient is liable to pay the tax. Supply is not liable to pay the tax, so supply is not supposed to take the registration if it supplies only RCM supplies. Next one is person making interstate supplies of taxable services up to 20 lakhs. You know why 20 lakhs they have given interstate taxable supplies? Because as we discussed earlier, 20 lakhs exemption is there in case of services. If it supplies interstate taxable supply of services up to 20 lakhs, then the person is not required to take the registration. Exemption is there for interstate taxable supply of services, not in case of goods. In case of goods, even if the limit is below 10 lakhs, then also you have to take the registration, compulsory registration. Okay. Next one is person making interstate taxable supply of notified handicraft goods up to 20 lakhs. Again, in case of interstate taxable supply of goods, in case of interstate taxable supply of goods, there is no exemption, but if you supply handicraft goods, means notified handicraft goods, then there is exemption of 20 lakhs. Then if the turnover is up to 20 lakhs, then you don't have to take the registration. Next one is casual taxable person making interstate taxable supplies of notified handicraft goods up to 20 lakhs. So CTP, casual taxable person, is also getting exemption up to 20 lakhs. Then person making supplies of services through an e-commerce operator other than supplies specified under section 9(5) of the CGST Act. They are saying about that one. Transportation of passenger, housekeeping, providing accommodation, hotels. Other than those, with aggregate turnover up to 20 lakhs. So person who is making supply through eco, and if the aggregate turnover is up to 20 lakhs, then that person is not required to take the registration. So you can add this point over here. See this one. It was given suppliers other than notified under section 9(5) who supply through an e-commerce operator. So they are, yes, it's true that they are required to take the compulsory registration, but if the threshold limit means if the aggregate turnover is up to 20 lakhs, then they are not required to take the registration. If it exceeds 20 lakhs, then only they are required to take the compulsory registration. Clear? Now what is given here? Star mark. See, double star mark, they've given rupees 10 lakh in case of special category states of Mizoram, Tripura, Manipur, Nagaland. Over here, in case of interstate taxable supply services, 20 lakhs for other than special category states, and for special category states we'll see 10 lakh. Likewise in case of handicraft goods, in case of this one last case. So where we are taking 20 lakh limits, corresponding limit will take for this 4 states will take 10 lakhs. Now next point is where and by when to apply for registration. Okay. Now see, person who is liable to be registered under section 22 or section 24. So person who are liable to take the registration as per section 22 or section 24. Now section 22 and 24 they are saying about. 22 is that one which we discussed, that threshold limit. Means if the threshold limit exceeds, and that person is required to take the registration. That is covered in section 22, and 24 is compulsory registration. So the person who are supposed to take the registration as per section 22 or 24, then they'll take the registration in every such state or UT in which he is so liable, and where they have said now when within 30 days from the date on which he becomes liable to registration. Okay. Now next one is a casual taxable person or a non-resident taxable person. A casual taxable person or NRTP is supposed to take the registration every state or union territory in which is so liable, and they are supposed to take the registration prior to commencement of business. Means at least they are supposed to take the registration at least 5 days prior to the commencement of business. Next case is a person who makes a supply from the territorial waters of India. Then they are supposed to take the registration in the coastal state or union territory where the nearest point of appropriate baseline is located. And they are also supposed to take the registration within 30 days from the date on which he becomes liable to registration. It's very simple, nothing to explain in this. Next point is voluntary registration and UIN, unique identification number. Now voluntary registration means when you take the registration on your own, means the limit, you don't exceed the threshold limit, but then also you are required to, means then also you are willing to take the registration. It's given here, person not liable to be registered under section 22 24, they are not liable as per section 22 or 24, may get himself registered voluntarily. Next one, UIN they have defined in respect of supplies to some notified agencies of United Nations Organization, UNO, multinational financial institutions and other organizations. It will be good if you learn these names, because it will be helpful if you write any answer. If it's related to UN, obviously, United Nations Organization, multinational financial institutions and other organizations, a UIN is issued. Okay, if supply is made to this, then UN is issued. And UIN is basically issued to those person to take the refund of tax, because when any person supplies to these all United Nations and all, then tax is not charged. So there is no output tax, and how they'll adjust the input one. So these UIN holder takes the refund of tax with the help of this UIN number. Now next one is effective date of registration. Application submitted within 30 days of the applicant becoming liable to registration. Now effective date, I was thinking of discussing this here only with this one, but I thought that separate point will be there, so I'll discuss there. So here's the point. Application, if application is submitted within 30 days of the applicant becoming liable to registration, means as we discussed before, if the applicant is required to take the registration within 30 days, that we all know, but if the application is submitted within 30 days of becoming liable to registration, then the effective date will be the date on which he becomes liable to registration. Means effective date will be the date on which he becomes liable to registration. Suppose the person becomes liable to registration on 1st April, means on 1st April his limit exceeded, and if it applies for registration within 30 days, then effective date will be 1st April. Okay. Now, application submitted after 30 days of the applicant becoming liable to registration. If the person becomes liable to registration on 1st April, and if the application submitted on suppose 2nd May, then then the effective date of registration in that case will be date of grant of registration. When the registration is granted to that person, that will be effective date and not 1st April. Next topic is deemed registration. Now, in this year, it's given grant of registration or UIN under any SGST Act, UTGST Act is deemed to be registration. UIN granted under CGST Act provided application for registration has not been rejected under CGST Act. It's simple. If registration is granted under one act, then it's but obvious that in other act also you are registered, because it is not tax specific as we discussed earlier. Okay. Now next it's given rejection of application for registration or UIN under SGST Act, UTGST Act is deemed to be rejection of application for registration under CGST Act. Simple. If the registration is granted in one act, then is deemed to be granted under other acts. Likewise, if application for registration is rejected under one act, then it is deemed to be rejected under other acts. Simple. Next point is procedure for registration. Now part 1, it's given here, every person liable to get registered. Liable to get registered means section 20 to 24 they are saying, and person seeking voluntary registration shall before applying for registration declare his PAN, that is permanent account number. First is permanent account number, then mobile number, email address, state or union territory in part A of form GST REG 01 on GST common portal. They are supposed to declare 4 things: PAN, mobile number, email address, and state or UT. Now once they have declared this, what happens? PAN, mobile number and email address, these 3 are validated. PAN is validated online by common portal from CBDT database. They'll validate this from CBDT database. Mobile number and email are verified through OTP, one time password sent to it. Done. Now after this validation is done, then a TRN, temporary reference number, is generated, and that number is communicated to the applicant on the validated mobile number and email address. So what we discussed first, the person liable to registration or voluntary registration one, that person is required to declare these 4 things. Then PAN number, mobile number and email address are validated. After validation, TRN is generated and that is communicated to the applicant. Then using TRN, applicant shall electronically submit application in part B of application form along with specified documents at the common portal. Using this temporary reference number, that applicant will electronically submit the application along with documents. Now what happens on receipt of such application? An acknowledgement on receipt of application means when the department, okay, when this application is submitted on the portal, and when the receipt of such application, acknowledgement in the prescribed form shall be issued to the applicant electronically. When the applicant submits the application and when the application is received by the department, then what happens? An acknowledgement is issued to the applicant electronically. A casual taxable person applying for registration gets TRN for making an advance deposit of tax in his electronic cash ledger, and an acknowledgement is issued only after the said deposit. In case of casual taxable person, what happens? TRN is issued to the casual taxable person, and after that casual taxable person, as we all know that casual taxable person is required to make advance deposit before obtaining registration. So once the TRN is issued to the casual taxable person, then casual taxable person is required to make advance deposit in the electronic cash ledger, okay, with application. Means casual taxable person will also submit the application along with specified documents, and that person will also make the advance deposit of tax, and after that only that person will get this acknowledgement number, unless no. Now next one is application shall be forwarded to the proper officer. This application of registration which is submitted, this will be forwarded to the proper officer. The procedure after receipt of application by proper officer is depicted in part 2. Now see how proper officer examines the application and accompanying documents when it's forwarded to the proper officer. Now see proper part 2. Proper officer examines the application and accompanying documents. If the same are found in order, then what happens? If same are not found in order, then what happens? First we'll do yes one. Okay. If same are found in order, yes, then within 3 working days from the date of submission of application, proper officer will grant registration certificate in form GST REG 06. Okay. And if the same are not found in order, means application there is some discrepancy in application or documents are not, means the proper officer is not satisfied with the documents, then what happens? Proper officer issues notice electronically within 3 working days from application date, thereby seeking clarification, information or documents from the applicant. Now what happens if applicant is now required to issue the clarification? Now if applicant has furnished the clarification, information or documents within 7 working days from the receipt of notice. Means notice that is issued by proper officer, if it issues the clarification, furnish the clarification within 7 working days from the receipt of notice. Yes, if applicants furnish, then if proper officer is satisfied with it, then proper officer what it will do? Then proper officer within 7 working days from the date of receipt of information, clarification documents, proper officer will grant the registration certificate in form GST REG 06. And if suppose proper officer requires the clarification, and if applicant has not furnished the clarification, or if the clarification which is furnished by the applicant is not satisfactory to the proper officer, then proper officer will reject the application for reasons to be recorded in writing. Clear? So see again this one, if the application is in order, then registration is granted within 3 working days from the date of application, and if it's not in order, then proper officer issues notice for clarification within 3 working days from application date. If applicant furnishes the clarification within 7 working days from receipt of notice, and if the proper officer is satisfied, then registration is granted within 7 working days from date of receipt of information. And if applicant doesn't furnish, and if it is not in order according to proper officer, then application is rejected. Now clarification, they have defined clarification includes modification, correction of particulars declared in the application for registration other than PAN, state, mobile number and email address. Why they have excluded this PAN, state, mobile number and email address? Because these all are already validated in the initial stage, so they won't require further clarification on this. So this completes our part 2, procedure of registration. What they have given here, deemed approval of application. If the proper officer fails to take any action within 3 working days from the date of submission of application. See here, proper officer is supposed to take the action within 3 working days. Means if the application is in order, then also they have to take action within 3 working days. They have to grant the registration, and if it is not in order, then also they have to take action within 3 working days by issuing the notice. So if the proper officer fails to take any action within 3 working days from the date of submission of application, or within 7 working days from the date of receipt of clarification, information or documents furnished by the applicant. See here, when the document is furnished by the applicant and if it is in order, means if the proper officer is satisfied with it, then the proper officer is supposed to grant the registration within 7 working days from the date of receipt of application. But if it fails to do so, then the application for grant of registration shall be deemed to have been approved. So these are the cases when the application will be deemed approved. Okay. Next point is special procedure for registration of CTD and NR. They have given wrong, CTP and NRTP. Instead of P they have written D. So casual taxable person. See what is written here. Casual taxable person is one who has registered business in some state in India but wants to effect supplies from some other state in which he is not having any fixed place of business. Basically they have defined CTP. CTP has a registered place in some state, and suppose it is supplying from any other state. So they have to take the casual registration as a casual taxable person in the other state where he doesn't have any fixed place of business. So such person needs to register in the state from where he seeks to supply as casual taxable person. Okay. Suppose any person is registered in Delhi and it is making supply from, suppose, Kolkata, means that person is not having any place of business in Kolkata, so that person have to take casual registration as a casual taxable person in Kolkata to supply. Okay. Now next one is NRTP, non-resident taxable person, is one who is a foreigner and occasionally wants to effect taxable supplies from any state in India, and for that he needs GST registration. NRTP is a foreigner. Again, he also wants to make taxable supply from any state in India, and for that he needs GST registration. Now, casual taxable person, non-resident taxable person, what they have given, GST law prescribes special procedure for registration as also for extension of operation period of such casual or NRTP. There is a special procedure for registration for this two, casual taxable person and NRTP, and if suppose they have a fixed operation period, and if suppose they are willing to extend those period, they are willing to supply like beyond that period, so they have to apply for extension of the operation period. For that also there is a special procedure for registration. Now they have to apply for registration, they both have to apply for registration at least 5 days in advance before making any supply. Next is registration is granted to them or period of operation is extended only after they make advance deposit of estimated tax liability. They both have to make advance deposit of estimated tax liability. Okay. After that only registration is granted to them or the period of operation is extended. Now registration is granted to them for the period specified in the registration application or 90 days from the effective date of registration. The period that is specified in the application or 90 days from the effective date of registration. Okay. Now amendment of registration. Except for the changes in some core information in the registration application, a taxable person shall be able to make amendments without requiring any specific approval from the tax authority. Core information means they don't have to make, means non-core areas, they can make amendment in non-core areas. For that they don't require any specific approval, but for making amendment in core areas they need the approval. Okay. So for amendment in non-core areas, they don't have to take the approval, like to change email ID, mobile number, day-to-day functionaries. They don't have to take the approval. These are the non-core areas, and core areas are like address of principal place of business or additional place of business, then legal name of business, then addition, deletion, or retirement of partners or directors. These are the core areas for which they need the approval. Okay. Now, in case the change is core fields of information, the taxable person will apply for amendment within 15 days of the event necessitating the change. The proper officer then will approve the amendment within next 15 days. So, when this change occurs within 15 days of that change, they need to apply for amendment, and when they apply for amendment, then when they apply after that, means when they apply from there after 15 days, means within 15 days the proper officer will grant the approval for the amendment. So basically we can say 30 days are involved, means within 30 days amendment will take place when it occurs. So for changes in non-core fields, no approval of proper officer is required, and the amendment can be effected by the taxable person on his own on the common portal, like mobile number, email address, these all. Now next point is point number 12, cancellation or suspension of registration and revocation of cancellation of registration. So first case is whether when the registration can be cancelled by proper officer suo motu or on an application by the registered person. Now read this one. Registration can be cancelled either by proper officer or on an application of the registered person. So cases are business is discontinued or transferred, amalgamated with other legal entity, or demerged or otherwise disposed of, change in constitution of the business, and taxable person is no longer liable to be registered. These are the cases when the registration can be cancelled by proper officer suo motu or on an application by registered person. Now, second case, these are the cases when the registration can be cancelled by the proper officer on his own. Application of the registered person is not required in this case. So, a registered person has contravened the provisions, prescribed provisions. A registered person has not filed returns for continuous 6 months and 3 months for composition supplier, 3 consecutive tax periods for composition supplier. Voluntary registered person has not commenced the business within 6 months from the date of registration. Even if you have taken voluntary registration, you are supposed to commence the business within 6 months. Otherwise, registration will get cancelled by the proper officer. Then registration was obtained by means of fraud, willful misstatement, or suppression of fact. There also registration will get cancelled by the proper officer on his own. Once a registered person has applied for cancellation of registration, or the proper officer seeks to cancel his registration, proper officer may suspend his registration during pendency of the proceedings relating to cancellation of registration filed by such registered person. Hope this is clear. Means once a registered person has applied for cancellation or the proper officer is willing to cancel the registration suo motu, then during the pendency of the proceeding, means when the cancellation is not done, when the proceeding is pending, for that period proper officer will suspend the registration. So proper officer, read again, proper officer may suspend his registration during pendency of the proceeding relating to cancellation of registration filed by such registered person. Now next one is procedure for cancellation. Where the registered person applies for cancellation, the notice the procedure. Whether a proper officer cancels the registration, the notice the procedure. First we'll see the procedure where the registered person applies for cancellation. In that case, registered person seeking cancellation shall apply for the same within 30 days of the occurrence of the event warranting cancellation in prescribed form, furnishing the details of inputs held in stock or inputs contained in semi-finished or finished goods held in stock, and of capital goods held in stock on the date from which cancellation of registration is sought, liability thereon and payment if any made, and relevant documents. Means when this cancellation event is occurred, then within 30 days that registered person is required to apply for cancellation. Now that person is required to disclose, furnish the details of inputs and held in stock, input in semi-finished, finished goods held in stock, then capital goods held in stock on the date from which the cancellation of registration is sought. Suppose cancellation is sought from 20th April, so from that date. Okay. So suppose registration cancellation is sought on 20th April, so it will disclose all the input details on 20th April. Okay. The proper officer shall issue the order of cancellation within 30 days of the submission of application for the same. Now, where the proper officer cancels the registration, then PO shall issue SCN, show cause notice to the registered person who has to reply to said notice within 7 days. In this case, show cause notice is issued to the registered person within 7 days. Means show cause notice is issued and proper officer wants to ask why your registration should not be cancelled. Give it the reason. If the proper officer is satisfied, then accordingly he'll take that step. Now what happens? Proceedings shall be dropped. When the proceedings shall be dropped, if reply to SCN is satisfactory. If suppose the SCC means the registered person gives a satisfactory reply to show cause notice, then proceedings shall be dropped, means there will not be any cancellation. Second case is where instead of replying to SCN, person furnishes all the pending returns and makes full payment of tax along with interest and late fee. So instead of replying, if it furnishes all the returns which were pending, it makes the full payment of tax along with interest and late fee. So there is no need for cancellation because he has done all the things. Now next one is if cancellation order shall be issued within 30 days of reply to SCN where registration is liable to be cancelled. Now the cases, these are the cases when proceeding will be dropped when SCN is satisfactory, when it has made all things good, like it registered person has submitted all returns, paid all the taxes, then proceedings will be dropped. But if the reply is not satisfactory, and if suppose it registered person has not furnished all returns and everything, then cancellation will be cancellation order will be issued within 30 days of the reply to SCN. Now revocation of cancellation, or we can say restoration of registration. In case where registration is cancelled suo motu by the proper officer, the taxable person can apply within 30 days of the service of cancellation order, requesting the officer for revoking the cancellation order by him. Hence, for revocation of cancellation, registered person can apply by making an application within 30 days of the cancellation order. This can take place only when the registration is cancelled suo motu. If you have only applied, registered person has only applied for cancellation, then why will he revoke the cancellation? Okay. However, before so applying, the person has to make good the defaults by filing all the pending returns, making payment of all dues and so for which the registration was cancelled by the officer. It is but obvious that your registration was cancelled because of your pending returns and pending taxes, and now you're applying for revocation of cancellation, and you have not made all the you have not made good the defaults, and there's no use of applying for revocation, na? So first you have to make good all the defaults, then you can apply for revocation of cancellation. If satisfied, the proper officer will revoke the cancellation earlier ordered by him. However, if the officer concludes to reject the request for revocation of cancellation, he will first observe the principles of natural justice by way of issuing notice to the person and hearing him on the issue. Before cancelling the request for revocation of cancellation, proper officer will give notice to the person. Registered person means he will give opportunity of being heard to the person before cancellation. Now this completes our revision. Then we'll move ahead with the questionnaire. Now let's start the questions. Question number 1. Determine the effective date of registration in following cases. Just now we have revised effective date of registration. So let's see question number 1. 1A. The effective turnover of Dhampur Footwear Industries of Delhi has exceeded the applicable threshold limit of 40 lakhs on 1st September. It submits the application for registration on 20th September. Okay, threshold limit was exceeded on 1st September and it submits the application on 20th September. Registration certificate is granted to it on 25th September. First we'll see that whether it has applied for registration within 30 days or not. So 1st September and 20th September, obviously within 30 days application is made. So what will be the answer? Registration will be effective from the date when he becomes liable to registration, that means from 1st September. Let's see the answer. Every supplier becomes liable to registration if his turnover exceeds the applicable threshold limit, 40 lakhs in this case, in a financial year. Section 22 read with notification. Since in the given case the turnover of Dhampur Industries exceeded 40 lakhs on 1st September, it becomes liable to registration on said date. Further, since the application for registration has been submitted within 30 days from such date, the registration shall be effective from the date on which the person becomes liable to registration. Section 25 read with Rule 10 of CGST Rules 2017. Therefore, the effective date of registration is 1st September. Clear? Now, question number 1B. Mehta Teleservices is an architect in Lucknow. Its aggregate turnover exceeds 20 lakhs on 25th October. It submits the application for registration on 27th November. So whether they have submitted within 30 days or not, 25th October and 27th November. Obviously, it's not issued within 30 days. And next is given registration certificate is granted to it on 5th December. So as per the provision, if the application for registration is not submitted within 30 days of when it becomes liable to registration, then the effective date will be the date when the registration certificate is granted. Now it will be 5th September in this case. Let's see the answer. Since in the given case the turnover of Mehta Teleservices exceeds the applicable threshold limit 20 lakhs on 25th October, it becomes liable to registration on said date. Further, since the application for registration has been submitted after 30 days from the date such person becomes liable to registration, the registration shall be effective from the date of grant of registration. Therefore, the effective date of registration is 5th December. Clear? Next, question number 2. Though this answer is simple, but if you don't remember the provision, you won't be able to give the correct answer. So it's important to revise the provisions again and again. In order to be eligible for grant of registration, a person must have a permanent account number issued under the Income Tax Act 1961. State one exception to it. I'm reading the question again. In order to be eligible for grant of registration, a person must have a PAN number. Means a person must have a PAN issued under the Income Tax Act. State one exception to it. As we have done in revision, it is PAN based registration, but what is the exception? NRTP, as is a foreigner. See the answer. Permanent account number is mandatory to be eligible for grant of registration. One exception to this is a non-resident taxable person. A non-resident taxable person may be granted registration on the basis of other prescribed documents instead of PAN. He has to submit a instead of PAN, what are the prescribed documents he has to submit? He has to submit a self-attested copy of his valid passport along with application signed by his authorized signatory who is an Indian resident having valid PAN. He requires a passport, self-attested copy of passport along with the application which is signed by the authorized signatory. Signatory means who is representing him, who is an Indian resident having valid PAN, and the application shall be submitted in a different prescribed form. Okay, basically two things are required: valid passport with self-attestation and application by authorized signatory. That is required, and the application will be submitted in a prescribed form. Now second question is done. Third question. State which of the following suppliers are liable to be registered. First one is 3A. Agent supplying goods on behalf of some other taxable person and its aggregate turnover doesn't exceed the applicable threshold limit during the said financial year. This I said you in the revision part only. If principal have taken the registration, agent is also required to take the registration even his turnover is below the threshold limit. Okay. See the answer. Section 22 stipulates that every supplier becomes liable to registration if his turnover exceeds the applicable threshold limit in a financial year. However, as per Section 24, means compulsory registration, a person supplying goods or services or both on behalf of other taxable person, whether as an agent or not, is liable to be compulsorily registered even if its aggregate turnover doesn't exceed the applicable threshold limit during the financial year. Sample. Now 3B. An agriculturalist who is only engaged in supply of produce out of cultivation of land. Remember this point was there in person not liable to register, not liable to get the registration. An agriculturalist who is only engaged in supply of produce out of cultivation of land and its aggregate turnover doesn't exceed the applicable threshold limit during the financial year. Even if the threshold limit, even if the aggregate turnover exceeds the threshold limit, then also registration is not required. See the answer. Section 22 stipulates, 3B. As per Section 23, an agriculturist who is only engaged in supply of produce out of cultivation of land is not required to obtain registration. As per Section 23 means 23 is person not liable to take the registration. Question number 4. What are the advantages of taking registration in GST? Theoretical type question. Read this. Registration will confer following advantages to the person. Advantages are legally recognized as supplier of goods or services. You have to learn this answer. Legally recognized as supplier of goods or services. Then proper accounting of taxes paid on the input goods or services, which can be utilized for payment of GST due on supply of goods or services or both by the business. legally authorized to collect tax from his purchaser and pass on the credit of the taxes paid on the goods or services supplied to purchaser or recipients, becomes eligible to avail various other benefits and privileges rendered under the GST law. So first is supplier gets legal recognition, second one is proper accounting of taxes, third one is he is legally recognized to, means he is legally authorized to collect tax from purchaser, and he becomes eligible to avail the benefits which are rendered under the GST laws. Next one, can a person without, question number 5, can a person without a GST registration collect GST and claim ITC? What is the answer? No. Obviously no. No, a person without GST registration can neither collect GST from his customer nor can claim any input tax credit of GST paid by him. Next one is, if a, question number 6, if a person is making taxable supplies from different states with the same PAN number, can he operate with a single registration? I'm repeating the question again. If a person is making taxable supplies from different states with same PAN, can he operate with a single registration? No. If it's the case, if he makes taxable supply from one state, then it is possible. But if supply is made from different states, then he'll have to take separate registration as GST state specific. Answer number 6. No, every person who is liable to take registration will have to get registered separately for each of the states where he has a business operation and making taxable supplies, provided his aggregate turnover exceeds applicable threshold limit. Okay, though it is state specific, but if aggregate turnover doesn't exceed the applicable threshold limit, then registration is not required. Question number 7. Can a person having place of business in a state obtain separate registration for each place of business? Yes, he can obtain, provided he satisfies the prescribed conditions. Yes, in terms of proviso to subsection 2 of section 25, a person having multiple places of business in a state may obtain a separate registration for each place of business subject to such conditions as may prescribe. Such conditions are what? If the supply is made to from one state to, means from one branch to another, then proper invoice should be issued, then ITC, proper tax should be charged in the invoice, and the recipient will take the ITC. Proper procedure means proper supply procedure should be followed, as if you are supplying to some outsider. So proper procedure should be followed. That is the condition they have mentioned here. They have to satisfy this condition, then only separate registration can be granted. Question number 8. Is there a provision for a person to get himself voluntary registration though may not be liable to pay GST? Is there a provision for a person to get himself voluntary registered though he may not be liable to pay GST? Yes. See the answer. Yes, in terms of subsection 3 of section 25, a person though not liable to be registered under section 22 or 24, 22 is threshold limit case and 24 is compulsory, may get himself registered voluntarily, and all the provisions of this act as are applicable to a registered taxable person shall apply to such person. Once you have taken the registration, all the provisions will be applicable to you, and you have to commence the business within 6 months. Otherwise, proper officer will reject your application, means will reject your registration basically. Next question is question number 8, I guess. Yeah. Is there a provision for a person to get himself voluntary registration? No, 8 is done, I guess. Sorry, question number 9. Can the department through the proper officer suo motu proceed to register a person under GST? Yes. Question number 9. Yes, in terms of subsection 8 of section 25, where a person who is liable to be registered under GST law fails to obtain registration, the proper officer may, without prejudice to any action which may be taken under GST Act or under any other law for the time being in force, proceed to register such person in the manner as is prescribed in the GST laws. So proper officer can proceed to register such person if he fails to obtain the registration. Next question, I guess question number 10. Whether the registration granted to any person is permanent. Yes, it's permanent, provided yes, the registration certificate once granted is permanent unless surrendered, cancelled, suspended or revoked. Question number 11. Is it necessary for UN bodies to get registration under GST? Yes, to get refund of tax. 11. Question number 11. They only take the registration to get the refund. Question number 11. Yes, in terms of section 25 subsection 9 of the CGST Act, all notified UN bodies, consulate or embassy of foreign countries or any other class of person so notified would be required to obtain a unique identification number from GST portal. The structure of the said ID would be uniform across the states in conformity with GST structure, and the same will be common for the center and the states. This UIN will be needed for claiming refund of tax paid on the notified supplies of goods and services received by them and for any other purpose as will be notified. As there is no output tax, so UIN will be needed for them, will be needed by the UN bodies for claiming refund of taxes. Next question. Question number 12. What is the responsibility of the taxable person making supplies to UN bodies? What is the responsibility of the taxable person? To mention this UIN number in the invoice. See the answer. The taxable supplier making supplies to UN bodies is expected to mention the UIN on the invoices and treat such supplies as supplies to another registered person. This is B2B, business to business. Question number 13. What is the validity period of registration certificate issued to a casual taxable person and NRTP, non-resident taxable person? 90 days of the period mentioned in the invoice. See, in terms of section 27 subsection 1 read with proviso thereto, the certificate of registration issued to a casual taxable person or a non-resident taxable person shall be valid for a period specified in the application for registration or 90 days from the effective date of registration, whichever is earlier. However, the proper officer at the request of the said taxable person may extend the validity of the aforesaid period of 90 days by a further period not exceeding 90 days, means 90 plus 90 days. Question number 14. What happens when the registration is obtained by means of willful misstatement, fraud or suppression of fact? Obviously, it will get cancelled by proper officer. See the answer. In such cases, registration may be cancelled with retrospective effect by the proper officer. With retrospective effect, mind it. Section 29, subsection 2, clause E. Question number 15. Is there an option to take centralized registration for services under GST law? No, it is state specific. Answer number 15. No, the taxpayer has to take separate registration in every state from where he makes taxable supply of services. So centralized registration is not permissible. Question number 16. What could be the liabilities insofar as registration is concerned on transfer of business? Answer number 16. The transferee or the successor shall be liable when the liabilities is transferred. So transferee or successor shall be liable to be registered with effect from such transfer or succession, and he will have to obtain a separate registration with effect from the date of such transfer or succession. And in case of amalgamation by the order of High Court, remember, in that case the amalgamated company or resultant company is liable to take the registration from the date when the ROC issues incorporation certificate. So question number 16 is done. Now question number 17. At the time of registration, will the SSE have to declare all his places of business? Yes. The principal place of business and place of business have been separately defined under section 2 subsection 89 and 2 subsection 85 of the CGST Act respectively. Place of business and principal place and place of business both are different. Okay, means they have been separately defined. The taxpayer will have to declare the principal place of business as well as the details of additional places of business in the registration form. As they are separately defined, the registered person is supposed to declare this separately. Okay, supposed to declare this both additional place of business and principal place of business. Next one, so business. Last question, does cancellation of registration impose any tax obligations on the persons whose registration is so cancelled? Obviously yes. See, yes, as per section 29 subsection 5 of CGST Act, every registered taxable person whose registration is cancelled shall pay an amount by way of debit in the electronic cash ledger equivalent to the credit of input tax in respect of inputs held in stock and input containing semi-finished or finished goods held in stock or capital goods or plant and machinery on the day immediately preceding the date of such cancellation, or the output tax payable on such goods whichever is higher. Means payment will be made by way of debit in the electronic cash ledger. Now what amount will be debited? Either the input tax credit amount or the output tax payable on such goods whichever is higher. That amount will be debited in the electronic cash ledger. So this completes revision cum question of this chapter. You'll get to see my new videos very soon, most probably in the coming week. So stay tuned to my channel, press the bell icon for latest updates. Don't forget to like, share and subscribe my channel. Yeah guys, there is one important announcement. Anyone willing to solve direct access questionnaire of ICAI study material for November 20 exams, then please do visit the link given in the description box. Stay healthy, stay happy, be a real human being and spread lots and lots of love. Thank you, bye bye, take care.